The South African National Taxi Council has a new leadership. Let's talk about the old one first. Phillip Taaibosch, who has been the president of the council for 2 terms, played an important role towards its formation back in 2001, and that's where he was elected as its first Secretary General. He served in the position for 3 consecutive terms until he was elected to the helm of the organization in 2014. Taaibosch joining me now to talk about his tenure and issues that still plague the taxi industry. Mr. Taaibosch, thank you very much for your time. Viewers will not have the benefit of what you said earlier just before we came on air, reminding me of an interview we did together at the start of this organization. Take us back there. What was the feeling as you got into the leadership levers of Santaco? What was the situation like back then?
Xoli, I think for the benefit of the viewers, I must appreciate you that at that particular time, you were the first journalist to have an interview on live television with myself. And now I'm just saying that it seems as if Xoli wants to make sure that as I closes the curtains, he is the last one to have conversation with me. But on a lighter note, that's on a lighter note. Xoli, let me first appreciate the taxi industry for having given me an opportunity to work for them. To work for them as the Secretary General until yesterday when I was given the reins over as the President. Xoli, there were 3 very serious mandates that we were given as a committee, a very new committee, and I think before I talk about those 3 mandates, I must just appreciate the South African government for having, gone to an extent of facilitating a unity within the taxi industry. And this unity was under the stewardship of Minister Dalla Oma in 2000 that led to the establishment of a new taxi body in South Africa in 2001. So now, after the establishment of Santaco, with a very clear mandate, firstly, it was to ensure that we eradicate violence within the industry.
Yep.
Secondly, is to ensure that the industry is united. And thirdly, it is to also ensure that the industry emancipates itself as far as the economy of the country is concerned.
Yeah.
Let me start on the subject of eradicating violence. I'm sure you would agree with me, Xoli, that that part Santaco has played very well. We have brought violence to its knees in this country and in this particular industry. Well, one would not miss to say that there are sporadic ones which are happening here and there, but not in a scale in which it used to be in South Africa. So I believe that taxi operators and taxi drivers have been thoroughly educated as far as their responsibilities towards the community.
Let me interject there for a moment, Mr. Taaibosch. Let me interject just for clarity-seeking purpose. South Africans who may not have that history as to just how bad the situation was in terms of violence in the taxi industry, South Africans who do not have that history will probably argue that nothing has changed in terms of how taxi owners deal with a disagreement, and that is through the barrel of the gun. They will argue very strongly that That still is the order of the day today. So distinguish these two periods for us. When you say the violence that is seen now is more sporadic as opposed to what it was back then, what's the major difference?
Xoli, let me indicate that in the past, we could see taxi operators killing each other as if they are killing flies. And the worst part was that there were no apprehension from the law enforcement side. In today's life, Xoli, we are seeing taxi operators who would go into a protest march, going into that protest march in a peaceful way. But I must indicate that, and that's where I'm talking about sporadic. What has happened in the Western Cape in the last 3 months has not been a very good, sign of what Santaco has achieved through the 20 years. But South Africa was very bad. We were burying a taxi operator on a daily basis in the country, and even some of the passengers were buried because they were part and parcel of the trip of a taxi driver. And hence, I want to make use of this opportunity, Xoli, that you are creating to sincerely apologize to all South Africans for the hurt that I and the taxi industry have caused them in the past. Yeah. And hence, I make it my duty with my leadership within the taxi industry that we work hard towards the education of the taxi operators and taxi drivers as far as behavioral change in the taxi industry.
Let's conclude the conversation with this final question, Mr. Taaibosch, and that has to do with the economic emancipation of the industry, as you put it earlier, that this was also another key mandate of yours. The BRT system, bus rapid transit system, was subsequently established in recent years, and the taxi industry, government very keen to absorb the taxi industry into that system, but unfortunately it has been rejected to a large degree. What will it take for the industry to allow itself to be recognized formally so, in a sense that you actually also pay taxes towards this country, the betterment of the country?
Xoli, let me quickly respond to the taxes one before I respond to the question around the economic emancipation of the industry. You know, Xoli, it's a must that taxi operators are not paying tax. I don't think that taxi operators are in a position of controlling themselves as far as that is concerned. I must indicate that in South Africa, in the entire South Africa, there is no taxi operator who will obtain a taxi permit or a taxi license without being cleared by SARS. And whether the tax clearance by SARS represents the acknowledgement that the taxi operator exists, it's another thing. But we are saying that we have not received anything which was coming from SARS to say that, Phillip Taaibosch or Xoli Mngambi, you are owing SARS this much on your taxis. And this was the income which you made. So we've looked into that, and we don't see that is happening. But I must indicate that very recently, as November last year, we met with a delegation from SARS, and we agreed that we need to go on a roadshow in the 9 provinces, where we are going to educate taxi operators about their responsibility towards paying tax in the country. Yeah. So that's that part about the tax and to actually remove that myth that the taxi operators are not paying tax. Secondly, Xoli, to respond to yours as far as the economic emancipation, and I think you are so quite right that you are saying that the BRT was supposed to be a huge economic flagship for the taxi industry. You would remember the then Minister of Transport, Jeff Hadebe, who indicated that the taxi industry is the taxi industry is
the backbone.
Pardon?
The backbone of the economy.
It is the backbone of the economy, but most importantly, the taxi industry is one of the leading members of the, empowerment from government as far as transport is concerned. And I'm sure you would remember that the taxi industry didn't get into this whole thing of the BRT because of certain misunderstanding between ourselves and government and the implementers of the program. But I must indicate that there was no stage where Santaco objected to the BRT. What Santaco wanted and still wants today is to become fully part of the establishment of the project of BRT. And as I'm talking to you now, I must indicate that in his acceptance speech yesterday, the new president of Santaco, Mr. Tsebe, indicated that they want to open a discussion with the municipalities and government around the issues of the BRT. We believe with the subsidization now being opened by government to every transport operator in South Africa or every transport provider, we believe that the time is ripe for the taxi industry to get involved in the real business of transportation.
That's wonderful to hear, sir. Thank you very much. With those words, that's the outgoing president of Santaco, the South African National Taxi Council, Phillip Taaibosch, joining us from Sun City, and that's where this conference, elective conference, was held, and the new leadership coming on board to lead Santaco. We shall see and monitor where this industry goes.